Coming up, when seconds matter, the police are just minutes away. If you're thinking about buying a gun, we're about to give you some real useful advice. Firearms sales are brisk lately, as they tend to be when a Democrat is in the White House. And after a year of civil unrest, what to consider if you're in the market? Let's ask the co-author, along with his renowned dad of Weatherby, the man, the gun, the legend. For 27 years, Tom Gresham has been talking firearms, self-defense, gun rights, training, and safety on the Gun Talk Show on several hundred radio stations across the USA, and it's on iHeart and Stitcher and wherever else you get your podcast. Tom, it's been too long. Welcome.
Good to talk with you, Holland.
Hey, Arkansas really recently became the 28th state to enact a so-called Stand Your Ground law. Explain what that law means.
Well, you got Stand Your Ground, you got Castle Doctrine. Two things are similar. Stand Your Ground simply means that before they passed it, you had a duty to retreat. You could actually be prosecuted for not running away when you're attacked. If you stood there and defended yourself when you had a way to get out, people were being prosecuted. So what they do is they say, well, okay, we're going to make it where you can actually protect yourself and your family. You can protect your kids. You don't have to gather them up and run away. You won't be prosecuted. So that's really all Stand Your Ground means.
Even in your own home, though, under the old doctrine, you had to retreat from your threshold, huh?
That's correct. And, you know, it doesn't make any sense. The whole idea of your castle or your home is your castle. You shouldn't have to leave your home when somebody breaks in. You should be able to protect yourself in your own home. And that's being recognized by all these states that have passed these Stand Your Ground laws.
What is your advice for someone who does not yet own a firearm, but is thinking about having one just to feel safer at home?
It's a complicated subject, and frankly, buying a firearm for self-protection is not for everyone. If you're not going to make a commitment to safety and to ongoing training, I would encourage you to perhaps reconsider. But for those who want to get a gun, my suggestion is to go get a class first, get a little training, because you don't really know what you need, and you don't know what you're going to like until you've had a chance to shoot. And a lot of ranges will allow you to rent guns and try them. What I suggest is that you call arrange for an instructor, get some one-on-one time with an instructor and say, look, could you bring 3 or 4 guns, or could I rent some guns from you? And then figure out what works for you. Unfortunately, typically a lot of women want to get a small gun, something that feels good in their hands. But the physics of it dictate that small guns recoil more. They kick a lot, and they're uncomfortable, and they're harder to shoot. And they may find that something that's just a little bit larger actually works better for them.
Interesting. We're talking with Tom Gresham, guntalk.com. Tom, on a recent show, you surprised me when you said handguns just don't work that well for self-defense. Please explain.
The reality is handguns are a compromise. The reason we use handguns is because they're small enough to carry. They don't really have a lot of power. And unlike movies, and the problem is much of what people know about guns comes from movies and TV, where you shoot someone with a handgun and they go flying through the air. Just doesn't happen that way. A cop friend of mine says, look, handgun bullets are like medicine. Sometimes it takes them a while to work. It's a compromise. If you knew you were going to get into a gunfight, if you ask a cop, what would you take? They're going to take a shotgun or a rifle, not a handgun. All that being said, that's why we go get training. And people will say, well, why did the police officer shoot this guy several times? It's because that's how many times it took for him to stop being an aggressor or to get him to stop attacking. And so it's not unusual for it to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We just saw a video out of Maryland where a sheriff's deputy had to shoot a guy 12 times, almost at point blank range, while this guy was attacking him before the guy stopped attacking him.
Wow. I know the rules vary from state to state. In several states, anyone can open carry without a permit, and a dozen some states allow concealed carry without a permit. Tom, background checks merely green light purchase. Any new requirement is going to be controversial, but what would be the downside to requiring everybody who's walking around armed to at least have had training?
The basic downside is this is a constitutional right. We don't require you to get training to vote or to exercise free speech. And the problem is, and we've seen this is not theoretical, is that if they say, well, we're going to require an hour of training, in a year they say, well, we're going to require a day of training, and the next year we're going to require a week of training, and it gets to the point where if you have an administration, whether it's local, city, state, or federal, who just doesn't like the idea of people having guns or carrying guns, they can say, well, we're going to require 500 hours of training. I realize that sounds a little ridiculous, but we've seen this escalation in requirements as a way of blocking people from exercising their constitutional rights as opposed to providing training. Now, don't get me wrong. I think everybody ought to get training. It's a good thing, and most people do. But the reality is, and the statistics show us, that even in states that don't require training, they don't have any more accidents, they don't have any more accidental or unintentional shootings than states that do require training.
Tom, you and I are old enough to remember when the National Rifle Association was advocating for background checks and was all about gun safety. Where did it go off the rails for the NRA?
The NRA is a total mess right now, unfortunately. The leadership there, they lost their way. And it's a shame because the NRA is the leading organization in firearms safety training. There are 50,000 certified firearms instructors certified by the NRA. They're the leading organization that runs competitions. And of course, they also, a lot of people, that's all they know about them. They also are the leading Second Amendment group out there. That slack has been taken up by some other groups like the Second Amendment Foundation and the Firearms Policy Coalition. But the NRA is in flux right now. They're actually in the middle of bankruptcy hearings right now. They're in court. We'll see what happens. I can only hope that they end up becoming the good, strong gun safety organization they've been in the past and a good, staunch protector of our Second Amendment rights.
Do you foresee gun control stiffening under the Biden administration?
Well, Joe Biden has promised to ban the most popular guns in America. I mean, he makes no bones about it. And people say, oh, he doesn't want to ban guns. Of course he does. He promised it before he got elected. This week, he said, I want to ban what he calls assault weapons, which is just rifles. By the way, factoid for everybody. More people in the U.S. are killed with fist and feet than they are with AR-15 rifles. People don't know that. And that's not from the NRA. That's an FBI stat. So these are just semi-automatic firearms, and Joe Biden absolutely, positively does want to ban those. He wants to put more restrictions on people. And here's the thing. We have tried every type of gun control imaginable in the U.S., up to and including confiscation of guns in some jurisdictions. At no point, and we currently have 20,000 gun control laws, at no point has any gun control law ever been shown to reduce crime. Never.
The term assault rifle is controversial, and most of these mass shootings that we've suffered in recent years were the AR-15. Are you sure that that's a safe gun to put into the hands of non-military laymen?
Yeah, of course, it's not an assault rifle. Assault rifle is a very specific term used by the military. AR-15s do not qualify under that. In fact, AR-15s function exactly the same way as the hunting rifle that President Teddy Roosevelt used 100 years ago. It goes bang one time with each pull of the trigger. More than 50 years ago, I used a semi-automatic firearm, more powerful than an AR-15, to kill my first deer at age 11. People use semi-automatic rifles all the time for hunting and for competition. The AR in AR-15 does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite rifle, the company that invented it more than 50 years ago. It's a safe, simple, lightweight, low-powered rifle that's infinitely adjustable so people of all statures can use it. And it's really a rifle that's favored by a lot of women.
Tom Gresham, guntalk.com. Appreciate your time. Come again, will you?
Absolutely, Holland, anytime.